that works, then you will have a mechanism to put notes. If it doesn't work, then at least one should issue a physical 3CB this year to the client. If the AO accepts it, fine. If they don't accept it, at least issue it to the assessee so that at the time when the scrutiny comes out, the physical hard copy can be filed with the department with the relevant notes. TP documentation, again, you would have to add another, either a separate report or another appendix to the international transaction for justifying your documentation. It is always better to have that separate rather than merging it with your international. A lot of us are practically saying that when no methods are available, though I agree with ma'am that TNMM may not be appropriate. I really, as a experienced international TP person also, I'm really struggling to in certain cases find any other method to justify other than TNMM. So other than giving some qualitative reasons, some business rationales for why the expenditures incurred, what is the benefit, that documentation is really crucial. What is the activity, what is the benefit derived, what are the exact nature of services. That should be properly described in the FAR. Often I've come across various TP reports which would just do a tick box kind of a thing FAR, which you say does not explain really the essence of the FAR and the benefit and the need of that service to the entity for which an expenditure is to be paid. That will put a lot of challenge to the department to scrutinize if you don't give that in a documentation appropriately. If you see what is documentation, is broadly the same as in 92D for domestic TP also, which is first try and give the entity related details, then price related, very important transaction related details. Because for SBT the transactions could be very small to the overall gamut of things. So defining the transaction, defining the overall group policy, the functional analysis, this will become very crucial. And then the methods, of course. I'm not getting into details of FAR and method, there is a separate section on that. These are the penal provisions as far as domestic TP and international TP goes. And the ones highlighted in green are the ones which were subsequently introduced, which is failure to report a transaction and failure on furnishing incorrect information or documents. These kind of penalties, of course, I must admit, is nowhere in the world and is in India. But at the same time, the judiciary and the courts have been pretty fair in dropping penal provisions. If you see in the last week itself, I would have seen a number of decisions where the court has dropped penalty because ultimately TP is subjective. So it's a matter of view. It's my view against the department's view or vice versa. So one can't hold, so long as bona fide you have proved that you have tried to justify, one can't impose a penalty. But these ones for not reporting is a dangerous one. Which is where I'm going back to the point that as a chartered accountant, please report. Even purchase and sale of shares. Lot of companies take a view not to report it directly and take it in the management representation that this is not an international transaction. I believe that may not be the right approach. It is better to report it and report it in a way to say that you believe it is not an, but at least report it. So that one, you don't have a penalty, and two, anyway on these issues now a lot of decisions, a lot of cases have come up. Where you will see a lot of judgments coming up as to whether really purchase and sale of shares. Like the issue of Shell and Vodafone last 2 days, I think High Court hearings have been going on, and a number of arguments have been made by the council, by the department council, in terms of the jurisdiction. Very interesting arguments. One very interesting argument in shares is that if in the first instance share premium received is not taxable, then what is not received, how can it be taxable? If you see the wordings of the law, it talks about that it has to have a bearing on the profits, income, losses and assets. And consciously the legislator has not included liabilities. So Share transaction has, that has to have a bearing, that has, the word liability was important to be there, which is not there. So these kind of arguments are being made, of course. One can't deem it as a notional interest or a loan, because if that be the case, then that's a in perpetuity you would be making an interest adjustment on a year-on-year basis, till the company is in existence. Your DRP and your tribunal would have to deal with what is the interest rate and stuff. So a lot of good arguments are being made, and we hope that the court kind of course, the risk is that the court would say that there are alternate remedies available, and therefore ultimately the onus would lie on the DRP and then the tribunal and then the normal courts. But if the court agrees to the arguments on legal jurisdiction issue, that really there is no jurisdiction available, because very interestingly this was argued in the court, and I was present and I was hearing it very nicely, that if you go to the TPO said I have only computed the fair market value. So he is not really, the TPO's job is just to compute, his job is not to tax. So he has done what he is supposed to do. The AO says that the TPO order is binding on me. So because he has computed, I have added. But nobody has really given under what provisions and under what sections it should be taxed. So these arguments we have to see what view the court really takes. In terms of really, if you see the interplay of SDT and PP provisions, it's a then and now position. I mean, all of us know that we had to report these transactions in Form 3CD. Now it's merely reporting them also in the Form 3CB. So your 48 was anyway covered. You need to ensure that you at least cover those transactions. Now there is because of the TP thing coming in place, and because in TP section 92A there is a provision of directly and indirectly in the associated enterprise transaction. There is another line of debate as to whether indirect holding should also be covered. Historically, most of the tax audit reports do not cover indirect holding. They cover only direct holding under 48(2). Of course, earlier institute guidance note said indirect should be covered, and the revised guidance note says that only direct should be covered. Our view also generally in the profession is that direct should be covered, because indirect holding, there is this issue of substantial interest and beneficial ownership test, and if one really goes through these judicial decisions, it does not really comply with that. Other than the fact that there is a circular 6P in 1968, which was issued when the 48 was introduced, that whether direct and indirect, the circular mentioned indirect should also be covered. But circulars are not binding. So to that extent, again, there are a number of Apex Court decisions available to support that view. Most of us this year are following the institute guidance note now, which says that you should cover only direct holding. So these issues will be there between 3CD and 3CB and stuff, but otherwise in general, it's really the same. Earlier there was a generic justification, now you have a scientific justification based on the prescribed methods. Fortunately, you also have the other method, as I mentioned, to give that flexibility. There was normal documentary evidence which was required, now it is more in terms of a TP study, report, documentation with supportings that you need to put in place. Of course, the scrutiny was earlier done by the AO, and we believe that now, in most cases, it should be done by the TPO beyond a particular threshold, and below a particular threshold, we continue to be done by the AO. Another challenge is going to be in if your value of transactions is less than 5 crores and more than 5 crores. Now, this in my view is really very academic, because I would, as a practicing CA, always suggest that whether it's less than or more than 5 crores, it's always better now that the provisions are there to follow arm's length even for less than 5 crores. Because you can't be doing something now and then once your transaction crosses 5 crores doing something else for justification. So the value of transaction is really to protect the taxpayer for onerous compliance requirements. But in substance, they should really be in any case following arm's length even for less than 5 crores. So though this has made a much of a debate, but generally I just thought I'd take this point that even if, because there are a lot of small CAs and, they have companies which have less than 5 crores, you can always suggest to them that, now that TP is available, the AO for less than 5 crores may also use those methods. So today when you have TP, international TP, the TPO is looking at more than 15 crores. But the AO in a lot of cases are now using TP methods, learning and even adopting for less than 15 crore transaction value. So one should not forget that the substance of arm's length should always be there irrespective of the value of transaction. There will be these situations which of course is going to create double taxation, and that is really the penalty for not being at arm's length. Where, say for example, you are having a transaction which is inter-unit, where there is a transaction between a tax exempt unit and a taxable unit. Then in that case, you won't have double taxation, because since it is inter-unit, it will get adjusted for. But if it is between different units, then there will be double taxation. So these issues are going to come up in terms of, in one case it being more than ordinary profits, and in the other case it being disallowed as an excessive expenditure. So that double whammy is going to be there. Administrative options, procedures, as ma'am is the best to suggest. She said these are of course the options that we all know that, the TPO existing would do, AO could do up to a certain limit. In fact, we have also heard that whether separately an SDT cell would be there internally in the department to deal with it. But practically, I believe it's best that, if one corporate is being assessed for international TP, the same officer assesses it for domestic TP. Because there will be a lot of common methods, documentations, which there's no point in repeating the same thing with another officer. So these are some of the technical issues which come about when we are actually really debating on domestic TP. The last several months, and I thought I should at least highlight these to you. Some of these I've given my view during when I've been covering the PPT, but I would suggest and encourage you to, if you have not thought of these questions, to really bounce off these questions with the relevant speakers in the relevant slots of, when they are covering 48.2 or when they are covering tax holiday units or in the panel discussion in the end. But these are important issues to be covered as to, whether direct versus indirect. Again, as I said, my view is that direct. That's the general professional view. I really also, but you can just again reconfirm this and you will hear this from other people. International transactions with the enterprise holding less than 26 but more than 20% voting rights. So now this is another tricky situation where it may not be a domestic transaction, but it is covered under 48 related persons because it is more than 20% and it's an international transaction. Normally 48.2 if it's an expenditure would be covered, so you will have to cover this despite of it being international transaction. Benchmarking of director remuneration again, whether it is under the company law limits. Company law limits also now suggest that one can't link it to the profitability, and which is where the TNNM game in my view is a dangerous game. Because say if you are paying a managerial remuneration of 3 crores to the MD and you're making a handsome profit and you justify TNMM, 1 year you are okay with it. Second year, say for God reasons, any untoward incident happens and there is a loss, and you still need to continue to pay your managing director that, right? I mean, just because the fact that it's into loss, you will not pay him. So there I believe TNMM is a dicey situation because, and even the company law, if you see, they say that where there is inadequate profits also, there is a particular limit set to pay the managerial remuneration. So one should not link it really to the profit. That's my view. It's more on what is the benefit and what is the qualitative assessment of that particular director that you can bring to table and convince through substance of that profile of the person rather than getting into a quantification. Again, management cost allocation. This is another important thing. Whether it is covered, it should be covered even if it is a head office allocating between different units. Though it's not really an expenditure and it is an allocation, it could be disallowed because there could be some units which could be tax exempt, some units which would be non-tax exempt. So these should be covered. Corresponding adjustment will not be available in case of intra-unit, inter-company intra-unit maybe. Free of cost services or benefits, again I believe it should be covered. Generally I believe SDT provisions would not only help from an income tax perspective but also help for corporate governance objectives which are anyway needed for for the purposes of your company law requirements. So to that extent, one can try and see how you can overlap the two so that you are not duplicating the efforts. And companies falling under presumptive taxation, of course, SDT is very difficult to say that it should apply because those sections don't apply itself. Though under international TP, a position is being taken that it should be covered because that is, if you see section 92 says without having bearing to any other sections in the Act when there is a transaction. But again, here different views are there. One can really bounce this off to various professionals during the day. And generally, I would like to mention that although TP is a specific anti-avoidance regulation, specific anti-avoidance will always be superseded by the GAR rules. So substance over form issues are always to be kept in mind. And one can't just say that, because you follow the TP methods, overall if there is no substance, one cannot challenge it. Way forward, the way we've been approaching it is, first time and mapping all the transactions, because the most important issue is to cover all transactions, report them to avoid any kind of penal implications, and then formulate a policy and documentation around the documentation and then your certification. So, of course, I would really like to take any questions. Keep the last 10-15 minutes for any kind of Q&A, any questions, any thoughts that you all have in terms of what I have said on certain points. Happy to discuss. Sorry? Other method. Describe other method. Unless, of course, there are people who are insisting on TNMM. So, for example, if it is a captive company and you're paying a managerial remuneration, you're doing a cost plus totally, which is the managerial remuneration also covered under the cost, then you can use TNMM. But otherwise, generally, it's better to use that as supportive and first say that what is the profile of that person, what years of experience in general, if there is any HR study internally done by your own department, HR department, if there is a new managing director and there is a similar earlier managing director, some comparison, if you can make on a broad basis. These are drawing clues from, so safer to put other method. Yeah.
About 40B4, that is remuneration to partner and interest which exceeds 5%.
That will be covered. Because partner is also covered.
How to make an ALP and benchmarking, because it is by statute itself it is covered, ceiling limit is given.
Right.
So we believe that when 48B should not apply, if it exceeds that limit then only it should apply.
Yeah, but if you see the wordings of the law, it says that it's not where it is only excessive you should cover. It says expenditure covered under 48(2). So you will have to anyway report it as a transaction.
Reporting is okay.
Yeah.
So far as adjustment is concerned, can anybody make any adjustment, because it is permitted by law itself to the maximum limit, whatever it is applicable.
Now, whether somebody can make an adjustment, that is really, I can't say, but I would say that if it is within those limits, then you have a better case. But you should not rely only on those limits. My point is that if there is a partner, you are paying a partner an X amount, then it is important to even document what is the experience of that partner, what is the benefit that that partner is bringing to the firm, how has it benefited the firm. Also document that so that it's not that he's a sleeping partner. Let's assume that he's not active. Now he's a partner, but you're paying him within the company law limits. Then the AO can challenge saying that there is no benefit derived out of his activity. If out of 12 months he is coming to office only 3 months, he's just because he's been there from the inception, he's not actively involved, one can always disallow that expenditure.
But under the Act, only working partner will be given their remuneration. So far, so good. Say since last several years,
Right.
it has been granted and permitted by the AO.
Right.
Then, can if now the TPO can say that it is being excessive because benefit has not been received, because he might have worked for longer years, 20 years for this firm. Now he is working for, say, sitting here at his home only, he is managing the affairs of the firm. And how
That can be challenged. According to me, one cannot rule out the challenge there if you are not able to prove the benefit. Because ultimately, even if you see 48.2, it says it's not only about what is excessive or unreasonable, right? It also talks about benefit. It also talks about there are other conditions in the 48.2. It talks about a legitimate need also. So all that you anyway have to justify. And if